8 mice were introduced into a completely controlled environment, 4 males and 4 females. They had constant access to food and water with no predators, no illness, and no external dangers of any kind. 5 years later, all of them had died, yet none of the deaths were linked to any physical disease or medical condition that a veterinarian could identify. Despite having every scrap of food they could ever want, every comfort imaginable, and 0 threats to their lives, they simply stopped trying to survive. It wasn't a lack of resources that killed them, but they died because life was too easy. To understand how a utopia becomes a tomb, we have to look at John B. Calhoun. He wasn't a doomsday prophet. He was a highly respected behavioral researcher funded by the National Institute of Mental Health. Calhoun was obsessed with a single terrifying question: what happens to a society when all its physical needs are met? To find out, he built Universe 25. Imagine a world designed by a god who only wanted you to be comfortable. It was a massive, custom-built habitat for mice. It had unlimited food, infinite water, no predators, and a climate-controlled environment that kept them in a state of perpetual luxury. There was enough space for thousands of residents. Calhoun expected to see a thriving, peaceful civilization. He expected paradise. What he actually got changed the way we think about human civilization forever. He didn't just build a mouse cage, he built a mirror. And as the population began to climb, that mirror started to show a very dark reflection. The experiment began with just 8 mice, 4 males and 4 females. This was Phase A, the adjustment period. They explored their new heaven, found the food hoppers, and realized the struggle for survival was over. Naturally, they did what mice do. They multiplied. This led into Phase B, the exploit period. The population exploded. Every 55 days, the number of mice doubled. They were healthy, strong, and lived in a world of pure surplus. By day 315, there were 620 mice in the enclosure. On paper, it was a success. The mice were living the dream. But even in this early stage, cracks were forming. Even though there was enough food for 3,000, the mice started congregating in specific areas. They wanted to be near each other. They were becoming social creatures, but the frequency of their interactions was rising faster than their ability to handle them. They were losing the ability to navigate social cues because they were never alone, yet never truly connected. Then came Phase C, the most famous and disturbing part of the study. This is where Calhoun coined the term behavioral sink. As the population hit 600 and kept climbing, the social structure of the mouse colony began to shatter. In the wild, a mouse has to fight for food and avoid being eaten. In Universe 25, there was nothing to do. The young mice reached adulthood but found no social roles to fill. All the territories were taken by the older, stronger mice who weren't dying off because there was no disease or predation. This created a surplus of socially redundant individuals. The result was a descent into madness. Males who couldn't find a place in the hierarchy simply stopped trying. They became withdrawn and huddled in the center of the floor, occasionally exploding into fits of senseless violence. They would attack anyone nearby for no reason at all. Females began to lose their maternal instincts. They would abandon their young or even attack them. The behavioral sink didn't just drown them, it erased their identity. The social velocity had become too high. There were too many individuals in too small a space, forced into constant contact, and the mouse brain simply couldn't process it. The Calhoun Effect was starting to take hold, turning a crowded paradise into a psychological wasteland, where the very concept of community was replaced by a chaotic, aggressive friction. But then something even stranger happened. As the chaos of the behavioral sink peaked, a new group emerged. Calhoun called them the beautiful ones. These were young mice who had grown up in the midst of the social collapse. To avoid the violence and the stress of the overcrowded areas, they completely withdrew from mouse society. They didn't fight, they didn't mate, they didn't even try to compete for status or protect territory. All they did was eat, sleep, and groom themselves. Their fur was perfect, no scars, no bald patches from fighting. They were physically the most magnificent specimens in the enclosure, but they were socially dead. They had lost the identity of what it meant to be a mouse. They refused to engage in any complex social behaviors. This is the viral moment of the experiment. The beautiful ones were healthy, but they were hollow. They were the ultimate product of a world with no challenges. They had become so focused on their own individual comfort and appearance that the survival of the species became irrelevant to them. They were the first generation to live in a world where the future didn't matter because the present was too comfortable to leave. The final act was Phase D, the collapse. Even as the population density began to drop because of the low birth rate, the damage was done. The mice had forgotten how to mate. Even when moved to new, uncrowded environments, the beautiful ones, and the survivors of the behavioral sink refused to reproduce. They had lost the capacity for the complex sequences of behavior required for courtship and parenting. The population peaked at 2,200, well below the capacity of 3,800, and then it plummeted. The birth rate hit zero. On day 1,780, the last male in Universe 25 died. The experiment was over. The colony was extinct. Calhoun noted that the mice had experienced two deaths. First, the death of their spirit and social identity. Second, the death of their physical bodies. It stops being about mice here. When Calhoun revealed his findings, the world gasped. Because our lives' analogies aren't subtle, they're shouting. Look around. We live in the most resource-rich era ever. Many developed worlders' major survival fight is over. We worry about Wi-Fi, not wolves. However, our beautiful ones are rising. In Japan, hundreds of thousands of young people live in their rooms as hikikomori, completely isolated. Birth rates are falling worldwide, even in countries that offer huge financial incentives to have children. As a modern form of the behavioral sink, doom scrolling provides infinite social stimulation without the risks or rewards. Is anything familiar? This generation is more lonely than any other despite being more connected. We have created a digital universe 25 where we can develop our online personalities as our social institutions collapse. We've mastered the look of life, but forgotten the how of life. We inhabit digital places that simulate community, yet isolate us. Naturally, critics say Calhoun was incorrect. Mouse in a box isn't like human in a metropolis, they say. Since elder mice hoarded space, forcing younger mice into the wash basin, Universe 25 failed due to inequality, not overpopulation. People say humans are more adaptive and have technology to control social velocity better than mice. Instead of density, they blame a lack of important social positions. Others argue that the Calhoun Effect patterns are unmistakable. The experiment is about interaction quality, not room size. What happens when societal positions are obsolete? Young people wither if a society doesn't need them to build, strive, or contribute. They become beautiful. The most disturbing thing is the unsolved disagreement. We don't know if we've switched to Phase D. In the age of social disengagement and digital preoccupation, certainty is scarce. My take? Calhoun probably didn't grasp the dangers of overpopulation. He probably learned the dangers of comfort. We are friction-designed biological machinery. We evolved to solve problems, overcome hurdles, and find significance in fighting for survival. Remove friction and the machine spins apart, not simply smoother. Modern friction is outsourced to AI, delivery applications, and remote labor. Our goal is to eliminate social challenges we can't swipe away or mute. We're so good at survival that we're forgetting why. We are heading toward urban loneliness, surrounded by millions but unconnected. This goes beyond population. It's about purpose. If we don't reintroduce genuine challenge and authentic social need, we may live in a flawless, manicured, and extinct planet. The beautiful ones were a rational response to a world that didn't require them. Mouse in Universe 25 didn't perish from lack. Their reasons ran out, therefore they perished. We started by saying they chose extinction despite having everything. Are we making the same choice? Check your screen time. Examine your friends. Are you becoming beautiful one? Not merely about an ancient experiment? This is a warning about our future. My next film explores digital solitude and how it relates to Calhoun's work in a way that unnerved me when I saw the statistics. Do not miss that. Subscribe to track mirror changes. Tell me in the comments, is the behavioral sink here or just beginning? Do we currently experience Phase C's apex or the terminal decline? Answers may be closer than you realize.